Moin, ihr wunderbare Menschen des Interwebs. Ich begrüße euch ganz herzlich zurück zu meinem Let's Play von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Im letzten Part haben wir den Grim Reaper einmal kennengelernt, den Staatsanwalt, und sind hier stehen geblieben bei den Zeugenaussagen, die wir uns jetzt einmal anhören werden. Es tut mir übrigens leid, dass jetzt die Parts ein bisschen kürzer ausfallen. Ich weiß eben noch nicht genau, wie ich das Ganze wirklich cutten soll. Ich möchte trotzdem versuchen, eben das meiste von Gerichtsverhandlungen in einem Stück zu lassen. Aber wenn es sich eben anbietet, dann würde ich eben einen Cut zwischendrin setzen. Und da muss ich eben noch gucken, wie wir das Ganze am besten machen. Aber ich würde sagen, wir hören uns jetzt erstmal an, was die Herren hier zu sagen haben. It was the last bus of the evening, so I had a few customers. I remember it well. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. Then, out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts. That's right, he stabbed him. I screamed. I couldn't help it. Yes, as soon as I heard the scream, I stopped my bus and then I saw too. Exactly, my lord. These men witnessed the incident in the omnibus with their own eyes. I would like to ask a question, if I may. Yes, counsel. Well, this testimony makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Why not? Well, the incident took place inside a moving carriage, didn't it? As has been clearly stated from the outset, yes. Well, in that case, how could those two witnesses possibly have seen what happened? There's no way they could have seen the inside of the moving carriage. How quaint. I'd read that civilization in the Eastern Island nations was a good century behind our own. But you're here in London yourselves. Are you really so ignorant about our omnibuses? Tell me, my Nipponese friend, have you even traveled in an omnibus? Well, no. We only arrived in London this morning. No matter. I've arranged for us all to see for ourselves the actual scene of the crime, that is. What do you mean? The actual scene? How? A carriage is designed to be moved after all, presumably you understand that much. Yes. The omnibus in which this bloody crime took place is here today, in this very building. Here? What? The entire carriage? Bailiff, bring forth the stricken omnibus. So that's an omnibus. The omnibus. I can't believe they could bring something so enormous in here. Great Britain's courtrooms are amazing. As you can see, the omnibus is pulled by 2 horses and can carry up to 8 passengers. 4 passengers seated inside in the enclosed cabin and another 4 on the rooftop deck above. Every Londoner knows that the best views of the city's architecture and sights are to be had from the top of an omnibus. And I should point out to our foreign guests that there is a skylight in the roof allowing a view of the interior from the seats above. A skylight? Oh. The penny drops at last, I see. These 2 gentlemen were occupying the rooftop seats on this omnibus when the murder took place. That is how they came to witness the grim incident. Through the skylight. That makes perfect sense. Well, counsel, this is a first. In all my years behind the bench, I've never experienced the crime scene itself being brought into the courtroom. There are a number of important clues remaining inside the carriage, my lord. I would like to submit the omnibus itself as evidence. That is the prosecution's wish. Very well, I see no reason why not. This omnibus is hereby formally accepted as evidence. Okay. Dann den müssen wir uns gleich mal angucken. I can't believe it. The entire crime scene entered as evidence? Yes, Great Britain is simply extraordinary. I could help myself a lot by giving that omnibus a thorough examination, seeing as it's here. Let us continue with proceedings then. Your cross-examination, counsel. Pray don't expect this Nipponese stray to understand the intricacies of British courts' cross-examination rights. Alright, my first cross-examination in a British court. Focus, Ryunosuke. Focus. Boah, das sieht cool aus. Das haben sie schön gemacht. Gut, bevor das jetzt hier aber losgeht, würde ich gerne mal die Kutsche hier untersuchen. Well, let's open the door and go inside, shall we? Scene of a murder. That's horrible. That's a poster for the great exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower, the centerpiece of the whole explosion. Oh, the Crystal Tower. It's under construction already, I believe. People all over London must be fizzing with excitement at the prospect of such a grand event. That's a poster for the great exhibition that's due to start 6 months from now. There's a lot of focus being drawn to the Crystal Tower. Okay, sagen wir jetzt selber. Okay. That's blood that's soaked into the seat. The victims, obviously. Yes, and that seat would be clearly visible from the roof deck. Would you really stab somebody in full view of the other passengers like that, I wonder? Well, it was after dark, and there was a lamp on in here, so perhaps the culprit couldn't see anything outside through the skylight. Whichever way you look at it, it doesn't seem like it was a planned attack. This seat looks reasonably soft, but it's actually rather hard when you sit on it. And only just wide enough for two gentlemen to sit side by side, really. Of course, an English gentlewoman would be dressed in such finery. It would be quite impossible for her to climb up to the roof deck, so she would have to be seated in here. A woman in a kimono would have the same problem. Women's clothes are very impractical, aren't they? The seat has a handle, it seems. This looks like all sorts of equipment that might be needed to keep the omnibus running. Feeding tubs, tools to repair, wheels, blankets, horse showing tools. So it's a storage compartment for the coachman to keep his things, it seems. There doesn't seem to be any space for passengers to stow their luggage, that's for sure. Well, I don't imagine it would be very convenient for that purpose anyway. Okay. Dann würde ich sagen, können wir nur wieder nach raus. Cool, wir können uns hier noch das Dach angucken. It's quite a large skylight, isn't it? Yes, quite large enough to afford a good view into the cabin from the roof deck. And there doesn't appear to be a handle or catch of any description. So I suppose it can't be opened from inside the cabin at least. Okay, dann würde ich sagen, gehen wir nochmal nach draußen. Have you seen enough? Let's step back outside then. Okay, dann würde ich sagen, da oben So, this is the roof deck of the omnibus. Oh, you must have a wonderful view of London streets from up here. So people sit all the way up here on bitter winter nights with the cold air rushing past them? And they have to pay money to do so? I can't imagine how cold it must feel. That just made me think of something horrible. Can you imagine being dragged around the city in the freezing cold as a punishment? Perhaps that is the real price you pay to stay out late. Gucken, ob die jetzt hier dasselbe sagen. So, okay. Okay, da sagen sie dann immer nur das Gleiche. Gut. Phoenix Wright Omnibus. Das finde ich ein sehr, sehr schönes Easter Egg. Von Phoenix. Aber ich glaube, mehr können wir uns dann hier nicht wirklich angucken. Gut, dann würde ich sagen, geht es weiter mit dem Kreuzverhör. Und mal gucken, was wir aus den Herren rausbekommen. Okay, I remember well. The victim and the man accused of killing him were sat next to each other inside the bus. Then, out of the blue, the accused just reached over and plunged a knife right into his guts. You actually saw the exact moment it happened? Didn't I already testify to that? Or are fair dinkum hard-working city bankers not considered trustworthy these days? Oh, no, I didn't mean that. This is no good. I've really got his back up. Perhaps you could just tell us what you saw in a little more detail, if that's... My lord. Euro number 3. What's the meaning of this? My mind is made up, my lord. Completely and utterly made up. Made up about what? I don't like the stinking rich, never have. They're always up to something or other that they shouldn't be, every one of them. And that little branch of a man is no exception. Well, he can't fool me. There's no point wasting time listening to any more of this. That's my opinion on the matter anyway. That is precisely what I was about to say. As the foreman of the jury, it's my duty to set a good example to my fellow jurors. Juroren. What is happening here? Let me see. Yes, it seems that's how the members of the jury give their verdicts. With fire? Apparently, yes. White for innocent and black for guilty. As the 6 members of the jury make up their minds about the case, one by one, they each cast a ball of fire into the great scale of justice, as we saw a moment ago. So, if those enormous scales fall completely to the black side, does that mean... Let's do our very best to make sure that doesn't happen. Now I'm even more worried than I was before. Very well, the court acknowledged the chance in the jury stands. Counsel for the defense, please continue with your cross-examination. This is a nightmare. Okay, that's right, he stabbed him. I screamed, I did, I couldn't help it. He stabbed him, you say, and you were sitting up on the roof deck, were you? Yes, that's right, sir. I was up on the roof seats. I remember seeing the little gent sitting next to the fellow that was stabbed. Aber wenn ich mir jetzt das Bild angucke von der Statur, sieht das hier jetzt nicht wirklich wie unser Angeklagter aus, oder? Wie unser Angeklagter. Sieht das nicht wirklich so aus. I'd been thinking about a new head design, you see, so I was just gazing absent-mindedly around. But then I happened to look down through the skylight. It was sticking right out from his belly, that huge great knife. A grim sight indeed. That didn't help me at all. The jury looked like they're even more convinced my client did it than they were before. It appears to have made everyone even more dubious that Mr. McGilded is telling the truth. If only we had some evidence to counter their suspicions. Mr. First... yes, sir? Is this the knife you saw? Oh, good grief. Yes, that's it. The very one, sir. Is that... Yes, counsel. This is the blade that was driven into the victim's belly like a stake through the heart. That is a blade of considerably size, counsel. It is, and furthermore, this scabbard is emblazoned prominently with a certain initial. The letter M, which seems oddly familiar. Please, no. M for Magnus, perhaps? Or McGilded, possibly? Take your pick. It seems this particular big name in London made a magnificent mistake. But there are M's everywhere. Yes, like in Mason. This blade is far too extravagant for a poor brickmaker to have owned. No, this weapon of murder almost certainly belongs to the accused. Not conclusive, but certainly compelling, counsel. Okay, dann gucken wir uns gleich nochmal das Messer an. My lord, if you will forgive the interruption. Oh, juror number 2. Go on. Mr. McGilded is a pillar of society and a gentleman, and a gentleman's word should be sacrosanct. However, those of us in service know we must accept hard truths. Wait, what are you about to do? Dispose of the rubbish. No. I don't wish to cause offense, but I do like to eradicate all traces of filth and crime. I have painstakingly typed every word uttered here today and cross-referenced all the facts. As such, I'm now in a position to draw the only logical conclusion. Not again. That's 4 out of 6 jury members who've proposed a guilty verdict. There are only 2 left. We've had it. Every time I press these witnesses for more information, I just make the situation worse. Nevertheless, what we need more than anything at the moment is more information. We're still very much in the dark. I suppose I will just have to keep pressing the witnesses, knowing that more sparks may well fly. We mustn't give up hope that we will uncover something that will give us a way to fight back. But... Alright, I will keep trying. I can't give up. I just need to keep calm and listen to the witnesses' statements again. Okay, gut. Wir gucken uns jetzt aber erstmal das Knife an. That part is the sheath, isn't it? Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Oh, sorry, yes, I just don't really like blades. Those don't seem like the words of a man with a large katana slung from his waist. That's not a blade, that's Kazuma's soul. Anyway, there's no sense in delaying it. Let's see what the blade looks like. It looks a lot like blood. It surely is blood, the victim's. An Englishman's blood looks a lot like a Japanese man's blood. Did you think it wouldn't? Sorry, it's just that we've only just arrived here in Great Britain. I'm finding it a little hard to adjust. Yes, I do understand. An ornate letter, M. Undeniable Mr. Magnus McGilded's initial. And it's beautifully gilded too. It must be very valuable, I should think. What is it? Look at this M. If you turn it upside down, it becomes a W. This could change everything. A W? Yes, this is one of those, you know, turnabout cases. I'm sure of it. I'm afraid I don't know at all, but what I'm sure of is that this is an N. Oh, well, that idea was quickly crushed. Aber mehr bekomme ich aus dem Messer dann auch nicht raus. Okay. What exactly did you see? Oh, well, sir, that would be the passenger, sir. Yes, collapse on the floor he was. And by the passenger, obviously, you were referring to the victim, Mr. Mason, the brickmaker. Then the other passenger had the knife in his hand, like this. By the other passenger, obviously, you were referring to the accused, Mr. Magnus McGilded. And then plunged it down like this, stabbing the other passenger in the belly. What? It is hard to believe of one of London's greatest philanthropists, but this is damning indeed. The law knows no philanthropists, my lord. Only the innocent and the guilty. Good deeds mean nothing when overshadowed by evil. The truth is everything. Couldn't agree more, sir. The truth. Alright, so when it happened, the only two people in the enclosed cabin or area were the victim and the defendant. And so help me, 3 whole people witnessed the man I'm trying to defend to do the deed. I don't like to be pessimistic, but we do seem to be in a rather difficult situation here. What am I supposed to think here? Is Mr. McGilded really innocent? Or could it be... Before we jump to conclusions, our first task should be to gather information. We need to understand the case much better than we do at the moment. Yes, you're absolutely right. Let's listen to those witness statements again, a little more carefully this time. Okay. So, wie switche ich denn hier nochmal zwischen... Ah ja, okay, so switche ich zwischen den... Also die, okay, die machen keinen Eindruck, als wäre das jetzt irgendwie falsch, was er da sagt. Ich bekomme da jetzt aber leider nicht mehr aus ihm raus. And you saw them through the skylight in the roof of the carriage? That's right, when you stood up on the top deck, the window's right there at your feet. There was a lamp on inside, so I had a pretty good view. The two of them were wearing hats and I couldn't exactly make out their faces, but there's not a shred of doubt in my mind that it was Mr. McGilded. How can you be so sure? Well, how can I put it politely? McGilded is a gentleman of rather small stature. I couldn't have mistaken him for anyone else. Let's not forget that when the vehicle came to a halt, the only people inside the enclosed cabin were the deceased Mr. Mason and Mr. McGilded. There is no room for doubt here. I really wish there was. Yes, I think it was some time after 10, wasn't it? Oh, yes, sir, that's right, sir. Yes, ever so cold it was, sir. Freezing, in fact. And you had 4 passengers on board at the time, is that correct? Yes, that's right, sir. Not all traveling in the same parts of the bus, of course, though, no. And there were no other passengers when the incident took place. No one alighted, for example. You're quite right with that, sir. No other passengers like that. No, none. So nobody fled the scene of the crime, then. I have to say the bus insists on it running. He does every evening. The last bus of the day. But I do wonder sometimes if it's altogether worthwhile. Yes, so sorry to say. What do you mean by that? Well, what with it being so cold and everything and only making 20 pence on the run, you see. Yes, I spent that much at the pub on the way home just trying to warm up again. I just can't believe it, sir. Can't believe it. A murder on my own bus. It's too awful to think about. I haven't been able to shake this cold ever since it happened. My lord, I wish to speak. Yes, Euro number 5. Do I take it that you too? As the master of the London Guild of Coachmen, the idea of murder being committed in one of the city's carriages is utterly abhorrent to me. It wouldn't be right to make a decision before hearing all the facts, though, I said to myself. But I've heard enough now. The horse has bolted, as they say. No, please, just keep an open mind a little longer. Gee up now, Silver Blaze. The finish is in sight. Das sieht echt schlecht aus. Peppo is a long-standing member of the guild, and I trust what the man says. Oh, thank you, sir. You're too kind, sir. This is too unkind, sir. Which now means that 5 euros agree to condemn this man. Madam Euro number 6. Yes, dear. What can I do for you? You've heard the testimonies of the witnesses in the stand. Oh yes, I certainly have. Still got my hearing, you know. Then pray tell, why are you yet to pronounce your leaning? Well, dear, the thing is, I'm a creature of habit, me. I always go to the park at around this time of the day and sit on a nice bench and get on with my knitting. There's a lovely little park just near where I live. McGilded Park, it's called. The gentleman donated it to the city, you know, to put a smile on Londoners' faces, he said. I can't imagine such a fine young gentleman would have it in him to take another man's life. How many Londoners live with their heads in the clouds, do you people not know? What kind of man Magnus McGilded really is? What kind of a man is he? The philanthropist Magnus McGilded has enough wealth to purchase the entire city he claims to value so highly. But where did all that wealth come from? Your client is a Shylock, sir, and one of the very darkest of souls. What? Stone the crows. McGilded lends money to extraordinary rates of interest, so his victims have no hope of repaying him. When they default, he takes possession of everything they own. He is a vulture that preys on the weak. I've never heard any mention of that before. Your faculties haven't deserted you, I'm sure, madam. So has a thought not crossed your mind? Would a man wealthy enough to buy London in its entirety not have a carriage of his own? What possible reason could this man have had to make use of a public omnibus service? You're not saying that. The victim, a poor brickmaker, had next to nothing to his name, save considerably financial liability. It will come as no surprise that his creditor was the accused Magnus McGilted. But let it also be known that the very day Mr. Mason was killed was the final repayment date for his debts. Good gracious. The brickmaker was destitute. He had lost his house. He had not a shilling with which to repay his debts. And in the end, this pitiful soul had the very last thing he owned taken from him, his life. By the merciless philanthropist pretender Magnus McGilted. I don't believe it. If I might add something briefly, Miss Susato. You claim that the victim had been lent money by Mr. McGilted, but where's the evidence to support your claim? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hollow chalice in a court of law. There it is. Lord von Zieg's hallowed chalice. Huh? How can this be considered acceptable? But I find myself in an unexpectedly good humor. I had heard ladies from the Far East could show great courage, but I didn't expect to experience it myself. As a judicial assistant to the defense, I'm simply doing my job. What a pity that your display of courage is in vain. This is the debtor's ledger, which details all monies loaned by the accused. You will find the victim's name clearly recorded inside. Allow me to present this ledger as evidence. And pray forgive the discourtesy of raising my chalice in a toast to the enigmatic East at the same time. A marvelous toast, counsel. I will gladly accept this new evidence. Okay. Ah yes, 20 guineas. The victim owed a considerable sum, and the accused made quite certain he had ample recompense. Well, it would seem I've had the wool pulled over my eyes. Regrettably, madam, that is the modus operandi of the accused. And it's such a pretty little park too. What a scoundrel. Uh-oh. 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 Still, maybe it's all for the best. Wait a minute. Let's think about this a little more before... I don't stand for nonsense. That was it. The last Euro's decision. According to this Encyclopedia of British Law, when all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the proceeding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. That's what it says here. The final verdict. It's over then. There's a footnote though. A footnote? However, the defense... All 6 members of the jury are now in agreement in this case. Allow me to convey my respect for your swift and righteous decision. According to the laws of this country, I will now conclude the trial. By delivering my final verdict, I trust there are no objections. Miss Susato, just tell me one thing. Oh, yes? You were in the middle of saying something before. The footnote in your Encyclopedia of British Law. However, the defense? What did it say next? Oh, yes, of course. One moment. When all members of the jury have concluded that the defendant is guilty, court proceedings are suspended and the preceding judge will deliver the final verdict and sentence. Then the footnote says, however, the defense has the right to demand a summation examination of the jurors at this point. Summation examination? A summation examination? From which century has that tomb you have there been resurrected? Judging from the binding, I would say that book is at least 50 years old. Any modern text on British law wouldn't even give such an antiquated procedure a mention. It's a relic, long forgotten, and certainly no longer practiced. So you're out of luck? What even is it, Miss Susato? The so-called summation examination. Oh, one moment, and I will read about it. You would demand the right to a procedure before you even understand what it entails? Typical Nibanese. Alright, Mr. Naruhodo, I think I understand. It seems that under this procedure, we would be able to appeal to the members of the jury. To do what, exactly? Appeal to them to change their leaning and reverse their decisions. And it says here that, if successful, the proceedings of the trial must be resumed. Make them reverse their decisions? Yes, in times gone by, barristers would use a summation examination to attempt to influence the jury's decision, but that procedure became something of a formality with no practical benefit really, so it rather fell out of use. I wonder why. Because it was devoid of purpose. Changing just one member of the jury's mind would be hard enough, let alone several. No self-respecting defense barrister would even assert his right to try in this day and age. Still, I don't see any mention of the procedure actually being formally revoked. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that also it may be antiquated and largely forgotten. It isn't yet extinct. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? A summation examination, our last possible option. Do we assert our right to carry it out or admit defeat? The defense wishes to assert its right to a summation examination, my lord. London is the capital city of the most powerful nation on earth. We have a duty to the world to exemplify the very highest standards of judicial procedure. Summation examinations are an embarrassment that should remain buried. But if it's our right, it's our right. I believe it could prove vital in this trial. The defense petition is perfectly valid. The court will proceed with the summation examination. This is madness. Foreman, are you and the remainder of the jury ready? Well, I'm not, there was no mention of this in the letter I received, you see, so... All members of the jury will be asked to explain on what grounds they have reached their decision. On what grounds? You must all justify your decisions and explain why you believed the defendant to be guilty. Well, my lord, you're rather putting us on the spot. This is most irregular. No mention was made of this before. I don't really hold with all this justifying lark. Seems to have thrown the jurors off. It seems none of them have experienced this before. Alright then. A summation examination. A defense procedure no practicing lawyer has attempted for years, is it? Well, just maybe. It might be the opportunity we've been looking for to turn this trial around. So be it then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court hereby calls upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant Magnus McGilted guilty for this most serious crime.